Hi, so tomorrow, or today I think it is actually, yeah, because it's past midnight, today, on Thursday, I'm going to see, well, I know I talked about this before on my channel, and yeah, I'm gonna see if I officially have Aspergers. See, because it got brought up to me before, and I thought about it, and I thought, and at first I denied it. I said, no, I don't. When the psychologist person brought it up to me maybe like 4 years ago or something, maybe a little bit longer, I said I don't have it and that I didn't want to get a diagnosis because at the time I was sort of really against the label of it. So I said I was against all labels at that point in my life because I had a weird experience. And I was like, no, we don't fit in boxes, and maybe we don't, but sometimes labels can help other people to understand us. So I said no, I don't want a thingy, but it's been like playing on my mind, so I'm just gonna well, it's been playing on my mind for quite a while, on and off. Um and yeah, so I'm gonna just go and get checked anyway, just see if I do. And then if I don't, fine. If I do, fine. Um yeah, I don't know. Like I know if I do it'll be high functioning and see I feel like looking back I was probably like, because I feel like everyone's got the traits. I feel like looking back, I was probably more so back then than I am now, than I might be now, because I feel like a lot has changed since I was an earlier teenager, and I'm talking about socially wise, and that's probably due to a lot of the things that I've been through. So for example, well, I won't say the exact cause of this, but I used to be really against hugging. Like I didn't understand it. I didn't enjoy it. I felt extremely awkward. I was alright hugging my mum, but like sometimes. But when it came to like hugging my friends and stuff, when I was about to go home, it was like I just didn't get it. I was the most awkward hugger ever. So I don't know. And then I did some things as a teenager that I probably shouldn't have done. But I finally like understood hugging, and I understood how to connect with people on a more emotional level, and it felt really good. Um, and I've never really gone back since. I won't say exactly the experience I had. Even though I've probably talked about it on my channel before, but I'd rather not promote that type of behaviour. But yeah, it sort of taught me how to be a lot more empathic and actually enjoy hugging people. And now I like hugging sometimes, not all the time. Yeah, so I guess you could say that that was a sensory type of issue. Um, Not liking physical contacts with people. Um, there's some other sensory problems that I think are still prevalent now and have been since being a kid. So one of them is I absolutely hate loud noises, or I hate perceived loud noises. So I can be sat in the car and be on the way to somewhere with my mum sat next to me, my sister's in the back seat. The radio's always too loud, so I have to turn it down. No one else. Well, usually that causes people to complain because they don't see it as loud. I feel like my mum talks too loud when she's sat next to me, and no one else seems to see that as a problem. But I see that as quite. Well, I can't. It's just frustrating, and maybe that's just me being picky. But it's not. It's not just a. It doesn't feel like just a rational thing. It's more like a. It's just like more like a feeling that I get. And maybe it's controllable. I don't know, but yeah. And another one I would say with sensory issues, I would say bright lights. Because I just don't like bright lights, and I think that's more of a fear of getting a headache, and I think that does link to the loud noises as well, because I don't like getting headaches, and loud noises and bright lights lead to headaches. So yeah, So maybe that's the reason why they cause me discomfort in the moment. And I understand that there is a lot of differences between girls' Asperger's or autism and boys, but I feel like there's less research on the girls' Asperger's, so it's sort of harder to diagnose almost. Well, that's sort of what I've came across on the internet anyway, and the internet's always right, obviously. Yeah. So another sensory issue is I'm not just making this video to sit and complain about all the things that I struggle with in life, because it's more like mental preparation for tomorrow, if anything, and I might not even upload it because, again, it's like a little bit, it's like one of those quite personal topics, but you know, yeah, whatever. So another sensory issue is that I find tickling painful, and like literally painful. Like I just can't. I hate being tickled. And then so my sister will tickle me or something, and I'll tell her to stop, and she'll just carry on laughing and doing it, and I'm like, it's actually not funny. This really hurts and makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, so that's one. With the social side of it, I'm socially inept in some ways, in some circumstances. So if I'm in a social situation whereby it's involved with doing something that I enjoy, like philosophy or like talking about some sort of deep topic, then that's fine. I can engage with the people there, and I can build a relationship in that way by connecting with them over that set topic. But if it's a social situation where the people might be talking about things that seem not to have a purpose, like gossiping, or at least a perceived purpose to me, if they don't have that perceived purpose, then I'm not going to talk to anybody. And this is sort of what happened for like the first year of my art A level, because I just to be honest, I just like sat there and didn't really talk to anybody at all for like a year, and I ended up not really going to lessons, and I still don't really know why that was. It was partly to do with the work, partly to do with I didn't really know how to connect with the people in there, because obviously it's art. It's like it's not like there's a specific thing to talk about apart from art. But I didn't really know how to open up a conversation until it got to a lot later on in the year, and we actually started talking about politics and philosophy and slightly more, well, I guess more things that I was interested in and I felt like I could talk about. And then I opened up a little bit more, and yeah, it got easier from there. But it's like I need to have that initial conversation with people, that initial connection with a specific conversation, or a specific topic, in order to be able to, I guess, open up and talk to people. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And maybe that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's possible. But yeah, I've also read that a trait of Asperger's in women specifically is trying to figure things out. Obviously, where I've got like over 200 videos on a YouTube channel of me, I'll say basically trying to figure out life, trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out who other people are, trying to figure out the meaning of life and what things are about. And I have come across in some research areas that this is common with females with Asperger's. So I guess that's a thing. And I think it was linked to like women having a lessened sense of identity, and so it's almost like a way of trying to find a place in the world. And I think that makes sense, because I wouldn't be able to describe myself. I had a job interview the other day, and they told me to tell them about myself, and the whole time, like I went into it and I was like, well, I'm just, I obviously didn't say this out loud, but like I just knew that I was just going to be playing this role for the next year of my life, and I obviously couldn't say that because it's makes it sound arbitrary. It makes it sound like I don't actually care about getting a job. But part of me does care about getting a job out of necessity, because I know that that's what I have to do in the world. It's not like there's an intrinsic part of me which is like, I really want to get this job because it's gonna be the best thing for me. Like, there is a part of me that says that, but it's not like a core thing. It's a core. There's a core part of me which says I need to get a job because that's been ingrained into me, and because I don't want to be a financial liability in my family, and because I want to be able to afford a car. But obviously those are all selfish reasons. And she asked me like, oh, so why do you want to work for our company? I'm like, I don't know. I literally said I don't know because I didn't know. I just wanted to get a job, but I didn't want to say that, so I was like, sorry, I don't know. I just know that I want to get a job. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're all just playing a role in the world, and I don't want my view to sound on humanity and on people and human nature to sound that arbitrary. I don't want it to be just the case that we're just playing a role. I think that's sort of like the existentialist view, and that we're just all playing roles, and we're not actually the people that we claim ourselves to be. So we're not actually doctors or teachers or lawyers or mothers. That's just a different role in which we embody in life. I don't want it to sound that random. I think that there is a core to our personality, which I'm not sure if the existentialists do acknowledge. However, I'm not super versed in that field of philosophy, so I wouldn't really be able to say. But yeah, I feel like I do agree with the existentialist in that we do play roles, but there is a lot more to us than just the roles in which we play. So yeah. What other ones is there? Okay, so I'll go back to the sensory issues and what that leads to, and that can lead to meltdown type behaviours, and this has happened quite a few times. It hasn't happened a lot recently because I've finished college, so I haven't been stressed. So I've been pretty okay recently, but especially when I'm in a stressful situation, and when there's other sorts of triggers like loud noises and bright lights and just other things like that, it can trigger an adverse reaction. So, for example, like if I'm at college, I'll end up walking out of a classroom and sitting in another room, and I don't really want to describe it because I'll just like bang my feet on the floor, and yeah, I don't want to go into detail about what can happen there, but yeah, it's not very nice to watch, and it's not very nice to experience, and it gets to a point where it's almost uncontrollable. Like, sometimes I can catch it before it happens, and then it's fine. But I've got to stop it before it gets to a certain point. So, for example, if it's noises that is causing it, then if I can, I feel like someone's coming downstairs. If I can sit and put my hands over my ears, and then that can obviously block out the noise, and then I can maybe do something like count to 10 in my head, or do other things like bounce my leg, or what else do I do? Just fiddle with something. Then it can go away. But if I don't catch it before a certain point, then it's not very good. Another problem, or won't say problem, another phenomena which I would associate with myself is, I understand that this is sort of associated with autism and Aspergers. It's sort of like a maintenance of routine. I think that makes sense. Having to maintain some sort of routine. So I prefer personally imposed routines. So I struggle to establish my own routines, and this often leads to deterioration in the way I feel about things and the way I feel about life, because I feel like I'm going off track because I haven't actually established that track. Like, at the minute, I've got a loose routine in place. Like, I know what I want to do each day. I don't have a specific time of which I'm going to do those things, which is okay because I don't really have a massive responsibility to uphold at the minute. So there's nothing I'm really gonna lose out on, apart from in the long run, if I don't keep this up. So if I don't keep up a set routine. So at the minute, the only things I'm really allowing myself to do is, aside from watching the World Cup and listening to music with my sister, I'm only allowing myself in my spare time to read. And I've started saying, like, because obviously there's a lot of videos on YouTube, I'm only watching lectures or talks about certain topics. Like, so for example, I watched quite a few today. I watched two on, one on an ex-CIA agent talking about how to spot a liar, another half of one by a guy who I watched the other day as well, but I can't remember, another one on lying and body language, and I watched another one on language and how I think it was called double speak or double speech, and that was really interesting. And I watched a documentary on Nietzsche, and I watched what else did I watch? I watched this lady talk about a book she wrote called American Nietzsche, which is basically how Nietzschean philosophy had influenced later American thought, but also how Nietzsche had sort of influenced the wars like World War One and World War Two. But I think I'm more familiar with the way in which Nietzsche influenced World War Two, because obviously his ideas about the Übermensch, which was basically, well, can be translated as a Superman, which is a person who doesn't become nihilistic in the face of there being no God. Rather, he creates his own values, and I'm saying he because Nietzsche would have spoken those terms. He creates his own values and can almost maintain himself in the world, and he doesn't need some sort of higher power to regulate his behaviour. But obviously then, so with this idea of the Übermensch or the Superman, the Nazis and Hitler took this idea and were influenced by it, and instead of just creating an Überman, they tried to create an Uber race of super strong people who could basically keep Germany at the top of the political and social hierarchy. And this obviously meant that they had to eradicate or get rid of all of the people who were perceived to be weak, such as Jews and the disabled, and anyone who posed a threat to this Aryan race, this perfect society. And Nietzsche didn't actually intend it to be interpreted that way, and he didn't actually publish the book because his sister, I think it was his sister anyway, was pretty much a Nazi, and she was the one who compiled his will to power, which was just a bunch of notes that he'd made before he went insane, and so she compiled it into a book and sent it off to a publisher, and she made it public, and Nietzsche chose not to do it because of the possible detrimental implications that could have come about as a result of publishing that book. And yeah, and it was detrimental, but I don't think you can necessarily blame Nietzsche for that, because that wasn't his intention, and it happened centuries after his death. So yeah, it's not really his fault. I said centuries, it was like a little bit less than a century, because Nietzsche died in 1890, 1888, 1889. I don't know, it was somewhere at the end of the 17th century, 18th century. Somewhere at the end of the 19th century. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I think Nietzsche was pretty interesting, and I went off on quite a big tangent there about a video I watched earlier. But anyway, I'm trying to restrict myself to only watching things which are philosophically relevant and are going to benefit me in the future, because I know that if I don't, then I'm just going to end up watching loads of crappy videos on YouTube, and I'm going to end up wasting all my time, and then I'm going to get to a point where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have spent all that time procrastinating. and obviously I'm going to look back and say I wish I'd done it differently. I wish I'd done it differently, and I'll hate myself, and I don't want that to happen again. Yeah, so I guess I don't know if you could class that as a routine. It's not like a superly structured routine, because I do struggle to put structures in place. And I had an extra time test for my exams at college, and the lady said who was doing it, she was like, "Oh, you've probably got mild dyslexia and mild dyspraxia." And as I understand it, dyspraxia is like almost an inability to maintain a level of organisation. So I do struggle to be organised, and I do struggle to I don't know, keep things together. I find that in order to keep things together, I have to talk to myself every day, or talk to YouTube, or write down exactly where I want my life to go. And it's almost like having that goal in place is a big enough motivation to keep me on track, but it doesn't necessarily require the willpower of just saying, okay, how am I going to do this every day without actually having a goal to head towards, which can often just mean me just putting everything off and procrastinating until I actually found out by the end of the day that I've got nowhere. But I find that by watching those sorts of videos about philosophy and about things that I'm actually going to pursue in the future, I find that helpful. I find that keeps me on track. Yeah. I liked being at college because that was an imposed routine. And whenever I didn't stick to the college routine, and whenever I didn't keep up with the work, I hated it. I would just get really stressed, and it wouldn't be very nice. I just feel really lost in a way, like I was just floating somewhere, and I wasn't actually doing what I ought to be doing, and I didn't like it. But I liked having that set routine of college, and I liked being at college for that reason. Or at least that was one of the reasons, and now I've just got to try and keep myself doing productive things, because otherwise I will not get anywhere in life. Yeah, so another one I came across was slightly androgynous, and well, obviously I would say that I'm quite androgynous. Like, I'm not going to get into the whole gender debate thing about pronouns and about there being more than one gender, because I do believe that there is only two genders. However, it does depend how you define gender, but assuming that gender is biological sex and not necessarily gender roles, I would say that I don't necessarily conform to gender stereotypes. In that I wear boys' clothes, I'm wearing a boy's jacket, I'm wearing a unisex top, and I'm wearing football shorts, which, I know it's not the most feminine look in the world, but it's what I find comfortable. Like, I don't like wearing uncomfortable clothes, and I guess you could link that to some sort of sensory issue. I don't know. So I'm sort of talking as if, and assuming as if I do have Aspergers, because the thing is that I'll go for a while without researching it, and I'll be like, no, I'm fine. I actually don't have it. I just don't. But then I'll actually do, I'll look at a list of the symptoms or the specific traits associated with female Asperger's, and I'm like, well, I'm identifying with the majority of these, so maybe it's the case that I do. And yeah, I don't think it matters as to whether I do or I don't. I think it'll just maybe just change the way I perceive myself. Maybe allow me to give myself a little bit more leeway when I am struggling with certain things, which could be attributed to that, because I've got an explanation. I like having explanations for things, because when you have an explanation for something, you understand it, and when you understand it, it's not in the unknown, and when it's not in the unknown, it can't hurt you, or at least it can't hurt you as badly, because, you know, it's better to face up to something willingly, and something that you understand, because then you can figure out ways to tackle it better than just it coming out of the blue and you're not really understanding what it's all about, because then it can, yeah, it can be more detrimental, I'd say. I don't know. the TV's gonna turn off. I don't even know why I'm pressing the button because I'm not even watching it. Yeah. Thirsty. Got a little bit of water left. I don't know. Anywhere. I've talked for a long time and I've got a dent in my finger from holding my phone up, balancing it on the bottom of my finger for too long. I'm about to do it again. Hold it like that. Okay, so I'm probably gonna go for a fag, which I know is immoral. I've already been through that. I'm probably gonna go for a fag outside in the dark because we're not allowed to smoke in the house anymore. No one's allowed to smoke in the house anymore because there's 3 people in my house smoking at the minute and it's not fair on my younger sister, so my mum and dad decided to implement that rule, which is okay because the house does smell a lot better now. So I'm gonna go for a fag, but then I was like, it's dark outside and scary. I might go see if my sister's awake, see if she wants to go for a fag with me, and then go to bed. I don't know. I'll figure that out off the camera. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching. Might have uploaded this, might not. Depends.